Councillor Graham, councillors, I can confirm we are now live streaming on YouTube.
Right.
I think we're just awaiting a couple more members and we've got 1 minute to go.
Oh, fine. I'll hang on until my computer says 18:30. Evening, Robert. You see how long a minute is while you're waiting.
Yeah.
Right. Well, welcome, councillors and members, to a special council meeting on this Wednesday, 25th November. And can I start by inviting Reverend Kevin Ashby to offer prayers?
So let's just be quiet for a few moments and just think about those things which particularly concern us about the meeting this evening, those things that we need to make decisions on, or those things about which perhaps we're still undecided. O eternal Lord God, from whom comes wisdom and understanding, we pray you to direct aright the minds of those who are about to take counsel together on matters concerning the everyday life of people in this borough, that in all their deliberations and decisions, they may faithfully discharge the duties of their office and ever promote the health, the safety and the well-being of those whom they seek to serve. For the honour of your name. Amen.
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 David, thank you very much for that. I'm afraid you're now going to sit through me reading the protocol. This meeting is to be run as a remote conference on Zoom. Any member participating by a remote link who declares an interest in any item of business in terms which requires them to leave the room must ensure that they cannot be seen or heard during the agenda item. This shall be confirmed by Democratic Services. This member of staff will thereafter confirm to the remote member when they may rejoin the meeting. Should any aspect of a conference link fail during this meeting, I will call a short adjournment of up to 5 minutes to determine whether the link can quickly be re-established. If the link cannot be re-established, the meeting shall be adjourned to a later date. In the event of link failure for individual members, the remote members will be deemed to have left the meeting at the point of failure of the equipment. And if the link cannot be re-established before the end of the meeting, then the presumption will be that the meeting should continue to deal with the item, providing the meeting still remains quorate. Should the meeting no longer be quorate, the meeting will be adjourned and any remaining items of business will be deferred. If the individual member's link is successfully re-established, then the remote members will be deemed to have returned at the point of re-establishment. I would ask members to indicate their wish to speak by raising their hand using the raise hand function on Zoom. With the support of Democratic Services, I will then invite each member in turn to make their contribution to the debate. All microphones will remain on mute at all times, except mine and those of relevant officers. Members may unmute themselves when invited to speak, and all microphones will be unmuted before proceeding to a vote. Before proceeding to a vote, I will ensure that all members and officers have no further comments by confirming with Democratic Services that no hands are raised. If any member wishes to raise a point of order, the member should unmute themselves and clearly state their name, followed by point of order, i.e. Councillor X, point of order, Mr. Mayor. I will then ask the member to specify the point of order that they wish to raise. Any member who has been absent from the debate due to connection failure must abstain from the vote. Please turn your mobile phones to silent and note that the meeting will be recorded and live streamed on YouTube. Thank you. Apologies for absence. We have Councillors Wilkinson and Councillor Baines. Have we got any other apologies for absence?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. In the last 2 minutes, I've had Councillor Illingworth trying to phone me. Because I use Apple, I've had to keep switching him off. So I'm working to the presumption he's giving his apologies.
Councillor Orson, if and Mr. Mayor, if I may, Councillor Illingworth has now joined us.
Oh, right.
Yes, just in the last minute or so.
But
Yeah, my iPad wouldn't let me in, but now it finally has.
I've just given you apologies, Councillor Illingworth.
If I may just point out, Councillor Hewson is still trying to join, so that's the only other member that isn't currently with us. So he's just having some problems joining, and we're trying to assist him.
Declarations of interest. A personal interest in respect for County Councillors Orson, Pearson and Posset is taken as being on record for any matters which relate to a county council. Can members indicate if they have any other interests to declare by using a raise hand function? I can't see any other declarations of interest.
No, there's nobody else indicating.
This debate will be held in open session unless a member wishes to raise a specific query or discuss Appendix B. Therefore, a resolution to exclude the public and press will only be required should this occur. Now then, the leader will introduce the report which updates members on the recent corporate restructure and seeks approval for the consequential financial implications, specifically in relation to changes within the Housing Communities Directorate in order to facilitate continuing delivery of the Housing Improvement Plan. The report also seeks approval to designate the statutory role of monitoring officer. Councillor Orson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to move recommendations on page 42126. I'm going to make an amendment as well later on, which will effectively form 27, but I will come to that about halfway through what I'm going to say. Following the resignation of the Director of Governance and Regulatory Services, it was necessary for the Council to both appoint a new monitoring officer and consider whether it wanted to go out for a like-for-like recruitment or reallocate responsibilities through a new structure. The current director role was created 2.5 years ago, at a time when the Council was undertaking a governance review and was contemplating a fundamental shift in the way it operated. The Council was extracting itself from a shared legal service and needed to establish its own in-house legal team, as well as establish a new democratic services function. The challenge for the new directorate was significant, and it was necessary to elevate the role to director level status to ensure that the required change could be delivered. Since then, things have moved on significantly, and we have established in-house legal and democratic services teams. We also have a more settled position in relation to our governance processes, and our new constitution is in place. These arrangements should always be kept under review, but given a more stable position, we felt a different level of structure and resourcing was required. We also wanted to create opportunities for internal progression, retain talent with the organisation, and deliver a saving to the general fund. A number of other reviews were also underway, and we have taken the opportunity to bring these together to address some more minor operational issues. Most notably, this report also addresses the proposed changes within the housing team, which respond to the review undertaken by the new director since his arrival in March, and which will assist him in ensuring continued delivery of the Housing Improvement Plan and corporate strategy. Mr. Mayor, following a month-long period of consultation, the elements of the new structure associated with the general fund have been implemented, and these will deliver an ongoing saving of £50,000 per annum, support talent retention, and deliver a smooth transition from the existing structure, whilst also shifting resources from senior managers to operations. Mr. Mayor and members, I know we are all rightly concerned about the current financial uncertainty, and there will be no doubt have to be some difficult decisions as we set the budget for next year. By delivering a saving, this structure will support this process and provide a prudent response and way forward. It will, however, be important for all members to be fully engaged in the budget development, and therefore I would like to add an additional recommendation, which confirms that all members will again be invited to take part in the budget scrutiny process in January as they were last year. Mr. Mayor, with your permission, if I could ask Natasha, Democratic Services, to read out effectively what will become 2.7 as the amendment.
Right, Natasha, could you do that?
So 2.7 will be to support the budget setting for 2021-22. All members will be invited to take part in the budget scrutiny process in January 2021.
Have we got a date?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, sorry, have we got a date for the scrutiny?
The date for is it the date for the January meeting?
It's January meeting,
Date for
Mr. Mayor.
scrutiny.
I don't have a date at all offhand, but it'll be in your diaries. It's the scrutiny meeting, as Natasha just said, in January. So, Mr. Mayor, as a consequence of the new structure through HR processes, Kieran Stockley has secured the position of Assistant Director for Governance and Democracy. And I would like to propose that she becomes our new monitoring officer. There is no statutory requirement for this position to be held by a solicitor, but it is typical and, in my view, desirable that the post should be held by the most senior solicitor within the council. Kieran has been with us for 2.5 years and has been a solicitor for 12 years. She has acted as Deputy Monitoring Officer since 2012 and has regularly led on complex matters, including major regeneration schemes, commercial ventures, and planning matters. She has also frequently deputised for the current monitoring officer, attending and advising council, cabinet, and committee meetings, and advising on strategic matters on her behalf. I believe she is the outstanding choice and an obvious successor to Adele, and I wholeheartedly recommend her to the council to undertake this role. Mr. Mayor, the second area I would seek council support for is in relation to the financial implications associated with our continuing improvement in the council housing services. Before considering this, it is helpful to review the progress we have made since the Housing Improvement Plan was approved 12 months ago. Confirmation in March that the regulator was satisfied with our progress and confident in the way we have responded to the issues identified. Achieved continuing improvements to our health and safety compliance, with consistency high levels of gas service and delivered with 100% throughout September and October. A continued increase in electrical safety certification from less than 60% in April 2020 to over 89% of the stock in October 2020, with no outstanding Category 1 failures. Similarly, over the same period, the number of responsive actions outstanding from fire risk assessments reduced from 210 to 12, and the number of outstanding asbestos surveys has reduced from 411 to 46. Our efforts so far do not mean that there can be any room for complacency, and the focus on this area will remain, and I will continue to maintain personal oversight through the Housing Improvement Board, which has met regularly over the last year. Alongside compliance, Significant effort has gone into improving the housing service more generally. Following the work started by scrutiny, the grip on void management has increased significantly, with a draft void policy and relet standard currently going through consultation. The new draft tenancy agreement has also been subject to consultation, and together with a new tenant handbook will be brought forward for adoption from April 2021. A suite of policies developed with TFEC including its input are also being finalised and will be brought forward for adoption shortly. Over the last year, the council's landlord function has seen unprecedented activity and focus, and significant progress has been achieved compared to where we were, even though the challenges posed by COVID-19. Mr. Mayor, there is still much to be done. And as you would expect, the Director of Housing and Communities has, alongside Councillor Pearson, the portfolio holder, undertaken a comprehensive review of the service since Mr. Cotton's arrival in March. They have identified the structure they need to meet the ongoing aspiration of the Housing Improvement Plan and our new corporate strategy. And the financial implications of this structure are here before the Council today. The proposals do add expenditure to the HRA, but as demonstrated within section 10.5 of the report, they do not significantly change the use of reserves over that set out in the interim business plan due to a number of updated assumptions. We remain committed to completing the longer term HRA business plan in the timescale set out in February, and work is underway to procure an external contractor to complete stock condition surveys commencing April 2021 and finish in October 2021. This will support longer term projections from 2022-23 and beyond. But it is important we do not take our foot off the gas and continue to take action to improve in the meantime. I therefore propose 2126 plus the additional recommendation called 27 that I have added tonight. But before I finish, Mr. Mayor, it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge Adele Wiley's contribution to the council over the last 2.5 years. Adele joined us at a time when we were fundamentally rethinking how we would operate as a council. We knew we needed a governance expert to lead us through the changes we wanted to make, and in Adele, we got someone who was able to deliver. She has been a vibrant and dedicated officer during her time with us, and her support to the governance change process and establishment of the new constitution cannot be underestimated. She has helped build an excellent legal and governance team within the council and has been a key member of the SLT as they have coordinated response to coronavirus. I know that subject to council's consideration tonight, Kieran will be an excellent successor, but Adele has certainly left her mark, and we thank her for her service and wish her well in her new role. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Councillor Higgins, will you second the proposal?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will second the proposal, and if I can reserve my right to speak at the end, thank you.
Right, I will now open the debate. I've got Councillor Holmes, followed by Councillor Evans. Could someone in the meantime just check up the scrutiny meeting I've got down as the 26th of January? I know everybody's all busy changing diaries. If that date is right, could somebody let us know?
Councillor Graham, I can confirm that now for you. It is the 26th of January.
Great, thank you. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was actually, if somebody was going to second Kieran, that's why I put my hand up as early as I did, because I would have seconded her in the first place 2.5 years ago when we took on Mrs. Wiley, Mrs. Wiley, also Kieran put herself forward, but then she sort of disappeared in the last tier, which I didn't quite know why, because she spoke extremely well, and she seemed to be, although quite young, she was, to me, she was extremely good at what she was doing, and I think that has been proved. So actually, I'm just delighted that she has continued to take on the job. We wish Adele well in her next job, and so I just with quite pleasure to say that jolly good. I hope you're going to a bigger authority and you'll be able to spread yourself more. But I'm delighted that we have got Kieran, because she was somebody who I thought was actually excellent in the first time when we did meet her. That's all, Mr. Mayor, at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Holmes. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to be very clear at this point in time. I didn't think I'd be speaking like I am, but obviously recent events have changed things. And I'm speaking very much not as the leader of my group of the opposition, but as an independent councillor. In fact, they probably don't know I'm about to speak, but that's because I feel it's important that I do this and do this alone. I recognise at this point we need to appoint a monitoring officer during this meeting, but with deep regret, I am unable to support this motion and therefore will be voting against it. I must make it clear that this is not in any way reflection on the named appointee. It is instead the process that I am concerned with. The reason I have concerns with the process is recently, as I'm sure all members and officers here are aware, we've had real issues between relationships between members and officers. And these have clearly revolved around the monitoring officer. This has led to the appointment of John Mortimer and members of LGA to review this ongoing relationship issues. Unfortunately, also, this issue has been highlighted most recently by the response of this council to two separate incidents where an officer and a council member have been shown maybe to have acted in error. The true treatment of these two individuals concerned could not have been more different. In my opinion, and it is my opinion, the officer was treated correctly, in that there were clearly mitigating circumstances, including a poor constitution, which urgently needed to be reviewed and modified. However, the member was not treated in a similar manner. In this particular instance, we had an independent solicitor appointed by this council who dealt with the matter, and I did a bit of research. He is an editor on a monitoring officer handbook. And in that handbook, it makes it, there are many contributions, and most of them make it very clear that they consider that the treatment of members is too lenient, and that monitoring officers should have additional powers that allow them to impose even more severe punishments for misconduct. Amusingly, also in this report, now my independent councillors would be interested to know that monitoring officer considers the worst offenders in this are the independent councillors that they state because of due to a lack of political will. Nowhere in this document does it emphasise the need for training of councillors to ensure they are aware of the rules. To be honest, this is what annoys me greatly. How can we as members, Mr. Mayor, be expected to know the rules if we are not provided with the necessary training? It's the same for parish councillors in the Vale, and I've pointed this out many times. They also break these rules on a regular basis, not intentionally, but due to a lack of awareness. Sadly, I'm aware but instead of supporting councillors in fulfilling their obligations, instead it's been made clear to officers doing staff training that councillors cannot be their friends. But does this really mean, Mr. Mayor, that we are to be considered the enemy? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Evans. I can see no other people wishing to speak. I look for Democratic Services. Is there anyone else?
No, I can confirm. So we've got Councillor Brown has now raised his hand, and Councillor Cumbers as well.
Oh, right, fine. Councillor Brown.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just a few words I'd just like to say about my take on this, and I'm going to refer to the restructure and the impact that I feel that we need to be aware of in relation to the 2021-22 budget and financial position going forward. So, in relation to the structure as delegated to the Chief Executive Officer, I'd like to point out that this is agreed, but we need to understand that there will be a deficit in 2021-22 that needs to be filled. I welcome the leader's additional recommendation that members will be fully involved and able to get involved in scrutinising and also shaping the budget from 2021 and beyond. This is a positive move. However, it is important that members do get involved and contribute positively with ideas as to how this council is going to manage going forward and being financially sound. Being financially sound will mean that we need to continue with the corporate plan. However, we will need to be prudent, and to ensure we deliver services to the public, businesses and those most vulnerable, we will need to be innovative and generating income, such as, for example, moving forward ideas such as a housing company, which we've been talking about for a number of years now. We will need to guide the council on how this is achieved, and this is going to be very important for all of us as members to actually take the mantle and not just sit back and criticise, but actually come forward with some ideas, etc. And I would welcome everybody to take part in that process. However, the challenge is not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult. And the gap, I believe we could be looking at plugging about 700,000 in a deficit. So that's the challenge that we're up against. In relation to the housing revenue account, I think there's equally as important challenges there, which we as councillors need to be aware of. And we need to make sure that going forward that we support this council in the challenges that's going to face our housing service. We have a housing improvement plan, but externally, we have other pressures that are going to come upon us, which has not been discussed tonight. That is the government's white paper, the appointment of a responsible person over landlord health and safety, which is going to bring a big legal onus upon either an officer or a politician. Our landlord health and safety function, which is not going to get any easier with the new recommendations from government. Most importantly, listening to our tenants, which has been a little bit lacking in the recent past. And with that comes regulation, and with regulation comes cost and the need for structure. So I believe we will need to revisit the structures within the housing service to ensure we're able to embed those challenges, address those challenges. Also, as was mentioned earlier, and it's something not to be forgotten, is we don't currently have a robust stock condition survey. We don't have a full housing revenue account business plan. And until we know this, we will not know what the true position of our housing revenue account is and the stability of the housing service. And I would urge members to support Councillor Pearson in working with the Cabinet to ensure that we're able to address these issues and get the stock condition survey and business plan developed as quickly as possible. Overall, I think we can meet these challenges, and I welcome the statement from the leader, but also we need to be mindful as we go along. It will not be plain sailing, but hopefully working together, we will continue to do what we're all trying to achieve, even though we have differences, and that's actually ensuring that the people of this borough and businesses are looked after, especially in these difficult times. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. That was very interesting. Councillor Cumbers and then Councillor Child. Councillor Cumbers.
Thank you. I'm now unmuted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, just to say how much I will miss Adele. Adele has been so much part of scrutiny, guiding us, helping us, and really, I think, helping us to end up with an effective scrutiny committee. She's been such a tower of strength, someone we can always turn to, and I wish her well and lots of luck in her new position. Thank you. And now to refer to Ronan's points about the budget and the money and what we can do in future. I particularly hope that or believe that scrutiny members will have a special need, I think, to watch over and see what's going on with the money. I'll urge them, as I've urged them before, to look at the current contracts, to look at the current budget book, and to think hard about the things that we do pay for and services we do provide, and think hard about what we need in these desperately hard financial times, what we need, what we must have, what we like to have, and what we can really sort of do without for what, at least for a few years. So I think that's going to be an important part of scrutiny, and that's it. That's my point for the moment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cumbers. Councillor Child.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've just unmuted myself. Yeah. Thank you. I welcome the comments of the leader a few minutes ago, and the additional recommendation is a positive approach. With regard to the HRA, with currently no business plan and no physical stock survey in place to inform members of the condition moving forward of the housing stock, depending on the outcome of these, the HRA could have very little monies in the reserves in 5 years' time. Not everyone seems to have a full understanding of the long-term financial position. The white paper, when it is published, needs proper scrutiny to see what impact it has on projected expenditure. With regard to the GRF, I realise that the Chief Executive has delegated powers to approve the structure, but there are difficult budgetary decisions to be made in the next financial year and beyond to achieving a balanced budget. There are a lot of assumptions and risks associated with some of this. Is it necessary and prudent to hold on to some of the vacancies? By doing this would mean council taxpayers would not get a full and proper service, but would reduce the need for a string of redundancies. Let me tell you that the balance in reserves leaves us in an unhealthy financial position, and don't let anyone tell you any different. Should income from car parks and leisure centre not be realised going forward, then the council funds could be at serious risk, and Melton could be heading the same way as Northampton and facing a Section 114 notice. If this is to be prevented, we need to proactively work together as a council to mitigate these risks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Child. That was very useful. Councillor Freer-Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My point is probably more related to the Constitution, and as the chair of the Constitution Review Working Group, which is a sort of non-political group, we've been set up purposely to look at the Constitution and the policies around that to make sure that there is input from all councillors across the board. We have set up our own working plan going forward, and one of the first items on that work plan is the conduct of the complaints process, and also to look at officer member protocol, and also to look at the conduct policy as well. So these things are already on our agenda, and there's a space on there for ad hoc requests from members. So it's always there for members to feed into and put forward any complaints at the appropriate time so that they can feed into it and we can appropriately discuss those things, which is a committee, well, a working group that's supported by Adele for a very short period of time now, also Kieran and also Natasha. So it's a really good group, and we've had 2 meetings, so we do need time to embed and make sure that we're working effectively. I'd like to offer my thanks to Adele. I don't think I've been so supported as a councillor in the 14 years that I've had interaction as a member of the Melton Borough Council. So I'm sad to see her go, but also really, really excited and pleased to be working alongside Kieran. And it's really good to hear members being thoughtful about the budgetary constraints and the impact of the finances going forward into next year. And I would, with Councillor Ronan Brown's advocate for that, I would welcome also to be involved in that process, and welcome the fact that the leader and the chief exec is putting that forward for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Just a few points. We're on unprecedented times. We're all aware of that. But I think even before that, we've got to look at, we're talking about stock condition, understanding the state of the stock. This is not happening under this administration. This has been years of neglect. It wasn't only recently that we sort of got stuck into it, and everything we seem to dig into in the housing, we turned over more issues and problems. So you're aware of that. We've been to the regulator. I believe we're above the curve a great deal because we've taken it on. We're becoming more aware of the situation we're facing, but of course that's not been helped with the current situation. And we just have to look at the homelessness and the amount we're spending on bed and breakfast, which is not helping any budgetary concerns. I just want to give some confidence to people. At the moment, we've managed to bring the voids down to 35 days from a number of properties. The further we bring that down, the less it impacts on the budget. So we get people into houses earlier, and that's why we've got to do the surveys on the stock, because we can't move people into housing that isn't suitable at the time. It's false economy moving them in and then moving them out again to do repairs. We've got heating issues that haven't been done for many, many years. I remember many, many years ago, we had a policy that seemed to disappear prior to this administration that wasn't followed through. And now we're playing catch up. I don't want to point the finger at anybody. It's just that this is the issue. We're taking it head on. But let's look at that. Once we start reducing the void time, we've already reduced it, then we get people into the housing. That will help the budgetary, that'll bring down homelessness. So I believe if we look at all these impacts that we can put into place, which we are looking at, we're talking about it every day. I'm constantly in contact with the director, Andrew, and I talked to Ed about this as well. And I know Joe, and I know I talked to Ronan. We are passionate to turn this around. So I'm quite confident that we will manage this really well. It's we've mentioned the white paper, the green paper. It was a white paper now. We took that into account. We knew what was going to happen. So our new policy on tenants, contracts and agreements and tenancy agreements, we're above the curve there. We've been clever. We've understood what the importance of working with TFEC, the importance of working with tenants. We've just in the structure, which is to me is very important, that when we looked at development of social housing, of building, that comes under the HRA, because we need to build. We need to look at some of the parcels of land we've got to provide social housing for our people in Melton. It's crucial. Now, the good thing about new housing is, well, actually, you don't need many repairs and maintenance because they're new. So for a number of years, they're not going to cost a great deal. So when we are putting a great deal in place, and the structure to support all these appointments and concepts and ideas. We can't do it without a structure, and the opportunities there being taken place that we've got here to change the structure, to identify the issues in the housing area. I'm actually not down on this. My glass is always half full. I'm excited that we can manage this transition, we can manage the situation, and I think we're above the curve, and I'm really positive that we can manage this for the benefit of Melton tenants and for the future of Melton. I'm very, very confident, but Councillor Brown and Robert, Councillor Robert Charles, quite right. It's not going to be easy. We can't take our eye off the ball. We've got to be on top of it all the time. And I think I'm talking to Andrew every day. He's also a rugby player, so that makes it easy. Can we throw a few rugby puns in? But it's an exciting time. I prefer to look at it as an exciting time for transforming Melton Borough Council into one of the best smaller district councils in the country, providing the best housing for its tenants. We're narrative, we're listening to them, we're negotiating with them, and I think that's the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pearson. Councillor Holmes, I see you've got your hand up. You've spoken once. Was there something quickly you wanted to say?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to actually clarify from Councillor Pearson how many voids there were at this time, because I do understand in April, last April, I think it was 22nd or 23rd, we had to have all houses that were let up to standard, the right standard, or we would be in a massive amount of trouble. Now, are all those houses up to standard, or is that only in the private sector? That's all I was asking.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I won't jump to Andrew on this, but because I read these figures all the time. One of the problems with voids, we turned some over. There's still voids that are still void for a long time because of the condition. What happened was, quite clearly, because visits were, again, over a number of years before this administration, we didn't have the housing officers. As we said, we didn't have the structure that was in place. We used to years ago, but we didn't get the visits. So the stock, the condition of the stock wasn't taken. And I don't know why, but so therefore a lot of the stock was run down. So when we go to a void, it's not just, I mentioned this a while ago, it's not a normal fee, it's not a normal cost to fix it up. The longer you leave, as you're aware, Elaine, that the longer you leave something, the more expensive it is to fix and the longer it takes. I think that's the stuff. So we're getting down to the bones of it. So some of the properties we've got now, some of them are easy to turn over quicker. Some of them are taking a lot longer because of the work, the heating and the wiring that needs to be implemented prior to the people. The figures at the moment, I'm trying to look, because I spoke to Andrew today, they're around the 30 odd mark. We have an issue with Gretton, with Gretton Court. I think we've got quite a few there, through natural attrition. I don't like to people passing away. We haven't replaced that because there's work needs to be done at Gretton Court. That's bringing the numbers up a little bit more. So the figures have come down a little bit, but we're getting down to the difficult ones to turn around. I hope that answers your question, Elaine.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pearson. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to support Councillor Pearson when he said about looking for areas where we could build more social housing. I seem to recall that I went on a site visit and you were with us, Councillor Graham, when we were looking at garage sites to develop. I think we developed one garage site, but it used to be on the CSNA agenda month after month after month, and we don't seem to have done anything. Surely now is the time. Interest rates are low. One is always told to speculate if you want to accumulate, and surely this is the time. There are areas in most villages where you could build one or two houses. I know you'll say it's probably more costly to build just odd ones, but at least you're providing housing for people. And we're desperate for it. And I can't see under the present coming out of COVID how people are going to afford high mortgages. If you look on Rightmove, people are talking about £1,000, £1,200 a month. Well, few people, couples with children, can afford that with childcare. We've got to be providing more social housing. And I really do think we've got to take this on and really do something this time. I mean, yes, the garage sites, some of them weren't probably up to scratch, but I'm sure we could have done far more than we did. And we've built very few houses in the last few years. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pearson, would you like to come back on that?
Oh, I'd like to support Prue. I think Prue's fantastic. I mean, what she said is right. I think we do need to look at the small parcels, and we are doing that. And I think with the support from Homes England and with common sense, I'm really into this modular building, which is quicker. The other issue is sometimes garage sites, you have to be careful because they can be as expensive as building a separate house. So I think we need to look at that. But we can modern housing with the modern environmental, the cladding, not the cladding, sorry, the inside stuff, the heating, the ground pumps, there's so many options that a person can live in a house nowadays. And I've said this before, with electricity and cost and heating and everything, a few £100 a year. But I also want to just expel, I'm constantly talking about this social housing. Social housing isn't just for people on social rents. It's not for people. A lot of people with low wages require social housing. They work, so they go on universal benefits, so they can actually manage. Our role is to support them, to give them a prop up in the hope that in the future they can save and move into private housing. That's our goal. There's other ones that don't work, have got other vulnerabilities that we need to support as well. So we've got a very important role there. And we've done it well in the past, and I'm confident we'll do it well in the future. But Prue's right, we need to look at, and modern housing is about building houses for the future where they do have facilities you can change downstairs for wet rooms, where they have better access so you can live in a property. If you have an injury, you don't have to stay upstairs all day, you can live downstairs. We're talking about this all the time. So I'd like to give all the members confidence, all these areas we're exploring, we're talking about, we're passionate about, so we can provide these services and this accommodation. Now, just so everybody knows, there was a lot of talk about Park Street, the old place on Norman and Nottingham Road, the one with 10 flats in it. I did a lot of work on that. I visited it. I got the pack. I viewed the auction. The place is listed. It was up for an incredible price of 160, I think, which was very cheap, to 200 for 10 bedrooms. There was a lot of work. There was some problem with on the west side, the one that I don't know whether it's to do with the side where it goes on the cattle market, because I know there was some issues with the water coming off there. So that side was very damp. It was sold for over £500,000, would you believe? And when I did have an independent surveyor look at it, minimum was 300,000. He thought another 500. So that property now is around £1 million. That means that's £100,000 a single bed. You could get two in some of them, flat. So that was expensive. That's expensive. That's a lot, and it's listed as well. If you think about it, when you buy anything listed, you just don't know. I'm sure Melise, I know you own lots of castles, Melise, but you know, in reality, the listed cost you could imagine. So, but as a council, we did look at it. We did our homework. That's not suitable. But we're talking constantly about our lands we've got, the envelopes we've got, and I know with this structure, and this is important for Andrew, that one of the positions will be to look at this building and producing houses for the future, houses for people that can live in, that are cheap to look after, easy to heat. And so we're providing a fabulous service for our residents and future young people, for our tenants. And I'm very excited about this. But sorry, Prue, long-winded. I do support your comments, Prue.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carter, I see you've got your hand up. Councillor Carter. You can't hear anything. Oh, you're still muted.
Melise, I think Nottingham Forest is struggling. That's why I can't speak.
Probably what it is. Now, Councillor Higgins appeared every now and again on my list with his hand up.
Mr. Mayor, I believe that Councillor Carter now has managed to unmute himself, and I think Councillor Higgins has reserved his right to speak at the end of the debate, and then I'm aware that Councillor Alston would like to come after that as well.
So we've Carter, Higgins, and Alston. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'll carry on from what Prue said about garages. I back up 100%. I've had tenants come to me in Asserby to rent garages, and I've gone back to the council saying they're not up to scratch to rent. To me, this is dead rent, not what we ain't getting from the council, from tenants, sorry. To me, they're dead. What we're going to do with them, we need to get them up to scratch to get them rented, or we'll take them down and, like I say, build on them.
Yeah.
We need to get them up to scratch.
Yeah, I remember well going on the site visit with Councillor Chandler, and it was an eye-opening one. I'm glad to see things are happening. Now then, we have Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, members, for a lot of points that were raised in that debate. Some really good points, and I think Councillor Carter raised some good points in right at the end. Any dead space costs the council money, and it costs the HRA and those who pay rents to us cost them money if we have assets and we're not getting a return on. And I think really that's the fundamental part of this paper. It's to invest in that service, so we turn it over very quickly. And I think Councillor Holmes was touching on voids. While it's voids, as Councillor Carter said, dead rent, it's all dead. So I think with the investment we're putting in the HRA here, it will achieve a lot towards what members are asking on behalf of their tenants. Just to go on to the back to the paper, just from the top, I warmly welcome, and that's why I'm seconding this report, Kieran to the post. I think Councillor Holmes gave a real ringing endorsement of Kieran, and I thought Kieran did an excellent interview for the post which currently Adele holds. And I did say to the Chief Executive after the process, and sadly Kieran didn't get the top post, is that it was an absolutely excellent interview process that Kieran had done, and we should secure her services because we were still looking for legal advice in that position, and Kieran came to join us. So I see this as a fabulous opportunity for Kieran, and it does show also a good natural progression for other staff members. On the housing standards as well, the government direction is very strong on this at the moment. Is their especially with their green agenda and everything else that they're talking about, housing standards could be set to rise from the government. So MBC certainly wants to make sure it's ahead of that game. There are a lot of consultations and white papers being put out. And if we don't invest at this stage, we could be far and away too behind the curve if government changes those legislation. And investing in your own stock is a good way of going about it. Just to, as Councillor Child had said earlier, if you are consistently spending on repairs, sometimes it is better to fix it right first time. So hopefully over time, the long-term savings will happen from this paper. I'll reserve, I've got another point to make, Mr. Mayor, I'm nearly finishing. Local government funding, people have talked about that. I did say to Councillor Rose of Leicestershire County Council just today that from the spending review, the government really should acknowledge what local government has done during this COVID crisis. I think local government has been far and away the public service to achieve a lot of the government aims and to providing help and support to families, businesses, and just though this isn't part of the paper, if any businesses, please tell your businesses in your wards and in your areas that the grants that Melton Borough Council has is currently still open, and it's 1.2 million funding up for grabs for your businesses. As Councillor Chandler said, housing for people, and Councillor Chandler was totally right on that. And we're not far off from getting our own housing company agenda off the ground. We're looking at particular sites at the moment, I think as some members were alluding to get that money and reinvest in those services. Just finally, Mr. Mayor, and I'm sorry if I'm slightly out of time, but if you'll indulge me, I think a huge thanks from me personally, but also must go to Adele Wiley. I think her humour and her style has been absolutely fabulous for this council as it's reinvented itself and renewed itself through a whole load of new chief executive, new team at the top, and then taking the council forward, new constitution. And I'd like to thank Adele for her advice that she has provided either myself and I'm sure other councillors on a personal ward matters. Adele has even provided me advice as I've been trying to help residents with some legal matters or challenging parking tickets. Adele's sometimes looked at those letters to make sure I've got my points in the right order. So thanks for that, Adele. And those residents, if they are watching or ever hear on that, by the way, they did get off their parking ticket. So, they were very happy about that. And yeah, so good luck, Adele. And I think you'll be, Melton's loss is certainly going to be Northamptonshire's gain. And I'm sure you'll do some fabulous things there. So congratulations to you in your family. And I know someone talked about why members can't be friends with with officers. I think I speak on behalf of all the members here. We wish you a very warm and friendly goodbye, but a very warm, tribute to, and we know you will be very successful in your new role. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Higgins. I think we all echo those sentiments. Councillor Orson.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to wind up as the proposer. No particular order in which I'm going to go, by the way, because I've been scribbling notes as we go along. But obviously, Councillor Higgins did hint at the finance settlement today. Officers are working at this, and you'll be updated hopefully sometime tomorrow on the implications for Melton Borough Council. And like I say, no particular order here, but I'll start off with Elaine. I think she was the first to speak, so it may be the appropriate person to say thank you to Elaine for such strong support for Kieran. Councillor Evans, Councillor Evans, we've got to have a monitoring officer. Kieran is the appropriate person. She's the highest legal brain we have on the council. She has done remarkable work, as I said in my introduction. It's only appropriate she takes this role on as soon as Adele leaves, and I have 100% support. And I suspect when the vote comes later on, you'll find that will be echoed through the huge majority of the members who are going to vote on this. Councillor Cumbers, I appreciate your support, Councillor Cumbers, as always. I think you and I do agree that Cabinet's only as good as scrutiny, or scrutiny is only as good as Cabinet. I don't know which way around it is really, but they do go hand in hand. And as you know, you and I, we do work together. I know it's often said in Melton Borough Council, we don't always agree, but we always find a way through and it always works well. And I take your concern about the money. Councillor Brown, you said a lot and I welcome everything you said. But the best thing you said was councillors need to get involved in the budget process. And that is so true. We had a budget process last year and we could have done with more input from councillors. You've ably exaggerated that tonight, so thank you for that. You've told us there's going to be challenges. Certainly as a leader, I know that, and certainly the deputy leader knows that, and certainly Councillor Pearson knows that through the housing as well. And obviously our legal officer and chief executive are well aware of that. You did mention TFEC. I have to say, you know, we are working really well, as Councillor Pearson will support me with the Housing Improvement Board. We now have 3 members, not just John Skerritt anymore. The other 2, I can't remember the names offhand, but it will come to me halfway through the middle of the night, I suspect. But even so, they turn up and they take their full part, and I like to think they enjoy it. And they are, I can say, and Councillor Pearson will back me up, they are genuinely delighted with how the housing improvement has taken over this last 12 months, and a little bit more really than that now. Councillor Child, yeah, I mean, obviously we spoke this morning, and I do have to comment, Bob, as I did this morning, that we have had vacancies and we have held them open. We've done that already. And we will continue to look at that. Yeah, there are difficult decisions for a balanced budget, but we also have to look to continuing services, because you know, Bob, and I know that councillors are very quick to say when officers aren't getting back to them. That might be because some of those officers haven't actually been replaced and the person who is being asked hasn't got the information to hand. So it is a difficult balance. I do appreciate your warning, and I know absolutely 100% you will be there at the scrutiny in January. Councillor Pearson, as always, Alan, you know, well, when you're a Forest supporter, you have to be half a glass full guy. You just have to be. And that's what I am. So 100% with you. And thank you for your continued leadership on all of this. You've done really well. And you're taking us to new levels in conjunction with our new director. And it's a pleasure to be on the, well, chair the housing board. It really is a great pleasure to do that every 2 months. Councillor Freer-Jones, Cam, thank you for your support as well. I mean, obviously you answered a lot of other points that Councillor Evans raised, and I'm absolutely over the moon that you came in and brought me up to date a little bit. So thank you for that, Alice, and well done. Councillor Chandler, yeah, well, garage sites, that's been going on for a long while. I can remember Councillor Wright telling me those at Old Oldby won't do, and I walked there, what, twice a day, 3 times a day? Tell you what, there's 4 or 5 sites there. Could never understand where the former Councillor Wright was coming from on that one. So there is availability down at Old Oldby for 4 or 5, and I'll remind that to Councillor Pearson at the right time. It's quite a contrast though, isn't it? We have Councillor Child warning us about spending too much. Councillor Brown, not quite so strong, but having quite rightly massive concerns about the spending. And then you come in, maybe now's the time to speculate. And I'm not going to say who's right, who's wrong. It's my job in conjunction with my cabinet to get the balance right. And that's what we're trying to achieve. I don't think I've missed anyone off, Mr. Mayor. Oh, Councillor Carter. Yeah, sorry, Steve. You're 100% right. So for your comments are noted. Thank you very much. So again, very happy to move 2-1 to 2-7, supported by Councillor Higgins as seconder, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leader. Now I'm now in a slight quandary, and I look at the Chief Executive. We're going to have a name vote of whether we can do the whole lot en bloc, or whether Councillor Evans would like 2.3 to be voted on separately. I look to Councillor Evans.
I need guidance, but I assume it's up to you, Mayor, how it's voted. I've got no problem with voting against the whole en bloc.
Fine. In which case, I think we will take 2.1 to 2.7 en bloc. Chief Executive, have you got the list of names?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to facilitate the votes on behalf of Council this evening.
I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, I was just wondering if Democratic Services could just read out 2.7 again before members voted, because it was only read out the once.
Right.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have that here. So 2.7 is to support the budget setting for 2021-22. All members will be invited to take part in the budget scrutiny process on the 26th of January 2021, which is the date of the scrutiny meeting.
Thank you very much. And can I just put in a request, we get the papers in good time for that meeting?
Mr. Mayor, before you go to the vote, please could I just let you know that Councillor Hewson unfortunately was unable to rejoin the meeting, and he has joined as an observer, but he wasn't able to join as a participant. So he has been observing the meeting, but unfortunately, because he isn't part of the meeting, he won't be able to vote.
Will you make a note of that on the voting sheet? Thank you very much. Right.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I shall facilitate the vote then. So as mentioned, this is a block vote on recommendations 2.1 through to 2.7, as indicated by Natasha a moment ago in relation to 2.7. And members, if I could ask for each of you to confirm whether you are for, against or abstaining, please. Councillor Baines is absent. Councillor Bindloss.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Carter.
For.
Councillor Chandler.
For.
Councillor Child.
For.
Councillor Cumbers.
For.
Councillor de Burle.
For.
Councillor Douglas.
For.
Councillor Evans.
Against.
Councillor Faulkner.
For.
Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Freer-Jones.
For.
Councillor Glancy.
For.
Councillor Graham.
For.
Councillor Hewson has been marked as absent. Councillor Higgins.
For.
Councillor Holmes.
For.
Councillor Illingworth. Councillor Illingworth. Can you indicate with a thumbs up, Councillor Illingworth, or if you're, or what you? I'm taking that you're voting for. Okay.
Yeah, I'm on. I'm just become unmuted. Confirm for.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lumley.
For.
Councillor Orson.
For.
Councillor Pearson.
For.
Councillor Posnett.
For.
Councillor Pritchett.
For.
Councillor Smedley.
For.
Councillor Steadman.
For.
Councillor Wilkinson is absent. Councillor Wood.
For.
Mr. Mayor, so that is 24 for, 1 against and 3 absent.
Thank you very much for that. So that is carried. Thank you all very much for this evening. If I could just have one quick request before we close the meeting. As we're not having a mayor's lunch party for the staff, I've got a few corporate gift that I'd like to give members of the staff. Now you have to order a certain number. So I'm going to have a few over. And what I'd like members to do is, if you feel that there is someone in our community who has helped this council during this past very difficult year, could you please let me know? And I would like to give them one of the gifts that we have over. So just email me with names and contacts, and I'll certainly see what I can do. But with that, thank you all very much, and we meet again on December the 17th.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
can I just say something before we finish the meeting? But I think you took the words out of my mouth, to be honest with you. I was just about to say what we got planned for the officers this year. I think they worked really hard, and the concerns is what we've gone through, what we're planning to do for them.
I will let the leader explain. There has been quite a lot of thought has gone into it. And so I will let the leader explain what actually we have planned.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Carter, for raising this. And you're 100% right. since the lockdown, I believe it was March 23rd, was announced by Boris Johnson that night. Obviously, the officers have worked unbelievably hard in very hard circumstances, working from home, a little bit alien circumstances in many ways, but literally everyone has performed really, really well. I personally think the performance has gone up of Melton Borough Council, and I applaud all the staff. So thought has been given to this because sadly, with the seriousness of the situation we found in COVID, it was decided a couple of months ago there would be no Christmas get-together, no Christmas parties or whatever. And so we started to give thoughts for that, and only the past few days, effectively, vouchers have been offered to all members of staff or about to be met. I think they have been offered by now because I think the letter went out. I looked to the councillor, chief executive, for a nod yes or no. I think they've gone out.
They haven't gone out yet, Leader. They're going out tomorrow, but they're going out imminently.
Yeah, okay. So hopefully not too many members of staff are watching, but vouchers are going out where they will be able to go to local suppliers, etc., and buy themselves a gift.
Mr. Leader, can I just come back? Why don't we give them Christmas Eve off? They deserve it. Give them Christmas Eve off.
They already have the time off in between Christmas and New Year, which I think we're the only council that does that. Am I right, Chief Executive?
Yeah, all staff have 3 days off between Christmas and New Year. We do actually close and finish earlier on Christmas Eve around 2 o'clock. So we do recognise the importance of that time of year for people to be with their families and try and facilitate that as much as possible.
So we do that. So the County Council, by the way, they carry on in between Christmas and New Year. And I think the other districts do, so we're the only ones.
Yeah, I know we do. Yeah.
And that's extra time. Am I right on that, Chief Executive, to their holidays? Yeah, it is extra, yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Leader.
Please keep that, Ms. Mayor, just before you say farewell, if I could ask members to keep that quiet with a bit of luck, not many members, if any members of staff are watching, having said that, if they are, Merry Christmas to them.
I think you've probably all got better things to do. Thank you all very much. I'll now close the meeting and see you all on